This clip that I'm about to show you is completely unbelievable to me. And maybe I shouldn't say unbelievable. Unbelievable is not the right word for it. Wrong-headed, unfortunate, missing the issue, missing the boat. Kamala Harris, campaign chair, as you would typically get in a campaign. People are pointing fingers at what they think caused the issue, who they think was responsible for the loss. And of course, there's going to be blame shifting. Well, you can't blame me because I was thinking this, and you can't blame this person because they were thinking this. And if they would have only done this, etc., etc., etc. That happens in every loss. What they say, winners have every father, losers have no fathers, or something like that. I don't remember the quote. Either way, that's the stage that they are in right now, pointing fingers. Who's responsible? Who did what? In some of the explanations that is coming out of the campaign, we've heard, in one sense, that Harris was never in the lead, at the very least from their internal polling. But a recent addition to the cornucopia of statements coming out about the campaign and how it failed was from the campaign manager. And the campaign manager points out, weirdly enough, interestingly enough, something that Malik and I talked about. When Malik and I were having a conversation about the campaign, and we were thinking, okay, well, you got to have primary. Malik said, no. He said, those black women will tear the DNC down if that's the case. And my point of view, I think, if I remember correctly, was more so, yeah, they'll be upset, but all things being equal, they hate Trump worse. Meaning there is no group within that demographic that hates Trump more than black women. A bunch of Fannie Willises. And so, will they be so upset that they decide not to vote? I'm highly skeptical of that. I'm highly, highly skeptical of that. Meaning, from my point of view, even if they would have been upset, even if they would have felt some kind of way, oh, what you trying to say? That black woman can't win? Even if they would have did that, at the end of the day, the case that would have been made to them for the next 2 months, or how much ever many months you might have had, would have been, do you want Trump to win? Do you want Trump to win? I'm this, I'm that, I'm whatever. Do you want Trump to win? Now, from my point of view, and I'm going to let you hear the clip first. I don't want to lead it. But all things being equal, they're saying the quiet part out loud. Look, black women would have been very upset with us. And that is the most loyal voting demographic in the Democratic Party. And so we did not want to get there either. Dude, campaigns, it's not about race. It's about best candidate. Let's hear him make his point.
We had 107 days, and I know people don't like that time frame, that number, but to open up a Democratic primary, you would have had black women, who were the strongest voting bloc for Kamala Harris, be highly upset if it was not Kamala Harris. You would have had someone starting with zero infrastructure. I hear your concern, and I'm not saying that primaries are not important and open primaries are important. We had 100.
Here's the thing, though. Kamala Harris just took on Joe Biden's infrastructure. So it wasn't as if Kamala Harris built it from the ground up. She just assumed Joe Biden's infrastructure. Wouldn't another candidate have to do something similar? I mean, again, they would have had to make name tags, buttons, all of that stuff. Fair enough. But ultimately, wouldn't they have just taken over the same apparatus that Harris was handed? I mean, that's my first question. More to the point, I guarantee you that between losing a race and choosing a black woman, meaning choosing a black woman and losing a race, or choosing somebody else and winning, I guarantee you those black women would have preferred winning. 1,000%. They would have preferred to win as opposed to losing with the black woman. It looks bad on a few fronts because it reinforces this notion that a black woman can't win, which is not necessarily true. And more to the point, Democrats just lose. They just lose. To the man they call a fascist, to the man they call Hitler, to the man they call a sexual abuser, to the man they call everything but a child of God. They just lose to that guy. And so you can understand why I'm a bit skeptical on this notion of not having time to have a primary and choosing the best candidate. Even if it would have had to been a quick primary, even if it would have had to been a mini primary, fair enough. Should have did it. Harris did not get any delegates. Uncommitted had more delegates than Kamala Harris, and uncommitted didn't even get to speak at the DNC convention. I'm pointing out that, look, you are being very casual here as you sit back talking about a $1.5 billion loss. There's that first. Two, this is an autopsy. So you do need to entertain other potentials more than just Black women would have been upset. I get that. Is that the end all be all? Should that be the end all be all? And you must understand, from my point of view, having a primary is a positive thing. Yeah, it's a democratic exercise. There's that part. And there is also this element of getting the best candidate. There's that, meaning who among these candidates can garner the most votes. So there's that. But there's also this other element that's a little bit more intangible of attention, meaning you are in the middle of a drama. Your president just got eaten alive by other Democrats, leading you to Kamala Harris or somebody else. Now, a choice had to be made. Joe Biden came out and endorsed Kamala Harris. Okay, fair enough. Thank you for that endorsement, sir. We are having a primary. And when you have that mini primary, whether it would have been 2 weeks, whether it would have been 3 weeks, whatever that is, and you have 2 more months of going out and rah-rahing the crowd, fair enough. But think of the amount of attention that the drama in and of itself would have drawn to the various candidates. And if you could indeed find a candidate that was actually good, that actually had some level of catching on, and the candidate wouldn't have been wed to Joe Biden in the way that Kamala Harris was wed to Joe Biden. Meaning, Kamala Harris failed miserably at her very first campaign in the primary and overspent in doing so. All right, this time around, she did the exact same thing. She overspent, weirdly enough, with $1.5 billion. Over the course of that campaign, at no point could she unmoor herself from Joe Biden. When Joe Biden, you had, 80%, give or take, of the population saying they were either angry or they were dissatisfied with the way things were going. That was the mood of the country. That is, that's pretty heavy, just that they were angry at the way the country was going. And they attributed that to Joe Biden. And so for Harris to point out, I can't think of anything I would have done different, and I can't think of anything I would do different. And I would keep the same policy on genocide and everything else. Okay, that looks bad. That looks bad. And I know from Harris's point of view, it was impolite to unmoor herself from Joe Biden. That's assuming she had any ideas on what she wanted to do herself, because I would imagine she never thought she was going to be thrust into that particular position. But my point is, because she felt a loyalty to Joe Biden, because she is effectively his employee, she couldn't separate herself. Separating herself from Joe Biden would get just immediate attention in the media, and they'd be saying, oh my God, Kamala Harris is separating herself from Joe Biden. She didn't want to do that. Fact of the matter is, though, that seems to be the thing that she actually needed to do. And if she couldn't do it, maybe there was another candidate that could do it. And in doing it, get buzz, attention, and actual support. And those Black women who may be mad for that first week, mad for that second week, maybe even mad for that third week. When it comes to the nub of it, as you said, they have nowhere else to go. They may be the most loyal voting base, but they will go and vote for whoever that particular candidate is, whoever that candidate was. I mean, after all things being equal, you would probably found somebody that was different than Joe Biden in some sort of way, with that candidate for the next month and a half, how much ever time they had, go on a media blitz instead of hiding from the media and trying to make the best argument possible that they won the primary on. Yeah, I believe democracy mattered more than just finding a candidate that was a black woman. Or for that matter, I believe democracy and finding the best candidate mattered more than picking Harris because she was black and a woman and would have pissed off other black women if you didn't choose Harris. Democracy mattered more. At the very least, Joe Biden could claim, I won votes, I won electoral votes, I won the most. He could claim that because he did that, regardless of not necessarily being the most real primary in the world. And to be fair to Joe Biden, most presidents don't really go stomping through the primary. I know Ted Kennedy, but that was a bit different. I'm saying that typically doesn't happen. It typically goes just like it went with Joe Biden. The only difference is that Joe Biden said he was only going to run one term. He was a transitional candidate. All things being equal, transitioning to Harris. Now, if indeed Joe Biden stepped down and let Harris run in the primary and she ran, fair enough. She won the votes. She made the argument. The public chose her. That is not what happened. And on some level, the campaign to try to get her over the finish line, despite the fact that just before Joe Biden stepped out, she was expected, understood to be very disliked. Dude, you did us no favors. And I'm saying us as America. You preferred to choose, or, and maybe to be fair, it's not necessarily his choice, so fair enough. But he's making this argument that this was the only way it could have gone. And I'm saying that is so wrong. There was a point where you could have had a primary. Hell, you could have even had a floor fight convention if you wanted to have some level of vestige of democracy left out of it. I'm saying this was not the only boat to go down that river, nor was this the only river that you had to go down. There were other avenues that you could have went with. I know now you're making this argument saying almost retroactively, even in 2020 hindsight. And I'm saying your 2020 hindsight needs to be a little bit more refined. And I'm pointing out that it could be self-interest of why your hindsight is what your hindsight is. You should have had a primary. And I mean, even given the schedule that you had, you should have had a primary. If nothing else, you should have had a floor fight. And at the very least, you would have gotten a hell of a lot of media attention on whoever the candidate was that won that floor fight or won that particular convention, or for that matter, won that primary. You would have been far better off. And again, when I'm saying primary, I'm saying this kind of truncated miniature primary at the last minute. And maybe if that was too much of a pull, at the very least, a floor fight. Something. And I know he could say, well, dude, that may be impractical. I know, but you lost. You lost. So whether it may be somewhat difficult or impractical or not, how could it be worse? You lost. You spent $1.5 billion and lost. Trump raised, what, $400 million in the angle. He only raised $400 million. I know super PACs and everything else added to it, but I'm pointing out that Harris raised $1.5 billion. That is a ton of money. Let's say that the other candidate only raises $1 billion. He still outraises Trump. You may not need $1 billion. You can't tell me that the way this race went was the only way this race could have went. And I'm saying that Kamala Harris was a uniquely bad candidate, and you would have been far better off having some device to give some level of legitimacy to the candidate to make her earn it, for one, and B, to give the option and potential for somebody else that may be a better candidate, that may click, that may galvanize with the American public better than Harris would have. Because I strongly suspect that if you put it up to some kind of vote, some kind of tally, she might have lost. If she would have won, fair enough. No issue. I shut up. Conversation over with. That's not what you did. Well, that's not what the Democratic Party did. And I would say that you were worse off for doing so. You should have had a primary. Choosing somebody in a smoke-filled room. It's not necessarily the best way to go with a Democratic Party. I'm going to say, like, I'm I'm going to say share, and I am going to say subscribe. Have a good one, all.